News, Brisbane.
This hour, joined by our political strategist, Bruce Hawker, here with me in the studio. And welcome back, Grahame Morris. We've missed you for a few weeks, but lovely to see you back there for us this afternoon. Let's start on the same-sex marriage campaign. Bruce, you've actually brought along your... have you filled it out? Have you filled out the form?
This is one I prepared earlier, Dave.
Oh, there you go.
And you'll see I voted yes.
You did vote yes.
And when
you didn't go a tick, you went across.
I went across. It's a valid indication of your voting intention. And more importantly, I brought along an envelope. Young viewers may not have actually seen one of these before. So it's this rectangular piece of paper.
Like. That goes in that goes in a letterbox.
And you don't even need a stamp. And so we don't even need to explain what a stamp is to anyone under the age of 30. So all right, get out there and do it.
Now, how do you think the campaign's going, Bruce?
Look, I think
a few weeks in?
I think it's going well, but you know, there's some method and madness in bringing that form in, because I think people do need to be reminded that if you haven't filled out your form and sent it in yet, you've got to do it, because it will be accumulating under a lot of other stuff and on the fridge or wherever. And, you know, everyone should...
Well, Grahame, I mean, what do you think? I mean, are most people paying attention to the to and fro of Tony Abbott being headbutted, windows being broken in Brisbane today, all of this stuff, or have they made up their minds long ago on this question?
The first one, can I start where Bruce was? My two 18-year-olds have got theirs, and I haven't got mine, and neither has her wife, my wife.
You're meant to have it by now, aren't you?
Something smelly. Look, I reckon if you have a look at the polls in the last few weeks, you have a look at the campaign, we are going to end up somewhere where Bruce and I thought we were at the beginning of this, on this program, at the beginning, and that was quite a polarised electorate. Those dodgy polls done by self-interested people that says 65–70% of the electorate were in favour were just that, dodgy, silly. And where I think this is a problem for everybody, let's say the electorate is 53–47 on the day, and there's a whole heap of people who didn't vote because presumably they didn't give a damn, didn't want it. This whole thing is meant to be indicative. Is it clear that Australians want same-sex marriage? On that position, no, it's not.
Well, but Grahame, you've got to accept, haven't you? Anything above 50%, whether it's yes or whether it's no. Once we get into what's an emphatic result, what's unclear.
No, not on something like this.
So what result does it need to be for yes to be acceptable?
Well, somewhere where the Drongos thought it was in the first place, about 70–30. That would be clear.
That's shifting the goalpost. You can't say that.
No.
It needs to be 70% yes for it to be legitimate.
No. That would mean that the 30% would have to pull their head in. If it is unclear and it's not clear cut, then we are still going to have, you know, a bit under 50%. We're not going to wear this.
But hang on, what if it's 50?
That is a problem.
What if it's 52% no? Is that legitimate?
Oh yes.
Well, it'd be well, of course it would.
Oh,
but
because
this is a proposition.
It's fine for the no case to win on 52%, but the yes case can't.
This is a proposition to change something. Now, if the people say no, you know, then that's it.
But what if the people say yes? What if more people say yes than no? What if a majority of Australia says yes?
Because you are telling people's basic beliefs should change. You know, this is not, you know, should tax go up and down. This is basic belief. And if half the electorate says, you're not going to tell me that my basic beliefs are going to change, I think everybody's got a problem.
Look, I think the survey form is far from perfect. It would have been better being left to the politicians to make a decision on, but given that this is the way in which the government's gone about trying to avoid having a referendum or a major plebiscite on the issue, then you've got to take the survey results and say, well, that's an indication of the voters' intentions out there. 50+1, that's it.
I'm sorry, Grahame, I'm sorry, I've got to side with Bruce here, because surely if you believe in democracy and surely if you believe in having this postal survey at all, surely a majority vote of the Australian people, given a chance to vote, saying yes, they want to change the law, has to be accepted.
But but this is an indicative. This is
That's right.
It's giving the government, giving the parliament a bit of an indication. Is it clear that people want this? I suspect it's not going to be clear.
But that's exactly what the Prime Minister has said this is not. He has said this is the will of the Australian people. If there's a yes result, that's what will happen.
It's just nonsense, really. It
That was based on dodgy polls where everyone thought it was 65, 70 plus.
So it needs to be 65, 70%.
I'm basically flabbergasted, I've got to say. Are you just trying to ramp up the arguments for the no vote ambassadors so that they can, when a vote comes out in favour of yes, if it does, they say, oh, well, it doesn't really count anyway, so we'll go and do our own thing and we won't be guided by the electorate's views.
I'm telling you what most Australians will think who oppose this.
Most Australians will have just said yes.
30,
52 or 3 or 4 or 5%.
No, if it was 70-30, the 30% would pull their head in. If it is close, they're not going to accept it.
Some of them are.
So what does that mean? What happens then? Okay, so say it is, and it's quite feasible that it is only 52, 55% that says yes. What would happen then, Grahame?
Well, then you've got the problem. Do you go to a formal plebiscite or do you back off and let the politicians decide?
Who have you been talking to, Grahame?
A formal plebiscite.
All right.
Nonsense.
I'm just telling you.
Okay.
Everybody, get your vote in. Get your vote in. You've heard Grahame.
Let's move on. I'll be fascinated to see if others more officially in the No campaign, we'll check with Lyle Shelton and so on, whether anything below 65% yes vote would be legitimate or not. Let's move to energy though. The gas move today. Bruce, to you on this. It seems like a pretty methodical approach. You find out what the gas shortfall is. Tell the industry, go and find it, otherwise we'll intervene.
Look, I think it's a sensible move, frankly. I mean, the government's probably parking legislation there ready to go if they don't do anything. But I think the industry, as you've indicated, will follow suit now. And why shouldn't they be compelled to do so, frankly? I mean, we should be providing for the domestic needs of this country when it comes to gas, particularly when it has such an impact on the cost of electricity or the cost of energy. And then worry about the export market. We've certainly got, I think, the largest amount of natural gas in the world now. Certainly massive amounts.
I mean, look, Grahame, these are Australian resources, of course, but these big industries have poured billions into developing them, right, into exploiting this gas and setting up these markets and so on. Do you think it's fair enough, though, that they be told now, put this, and it's a pretty significant chunk of gas we're talking about here, put it back into the domestic market or we'll force you to?
Look, I think we're all hoping that common sense prevails and that the gas industry itself looks at itself and said, look, we have a community obligation. There's got to be some stuff that we can find for the domestic market. They can't, they can't renege on their export contracts, but there's got to be more stuff. And also, and this has annoyed me all along, since when Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard was in office, people like PricewaterhouseCoopers were saying, look, Sydney manufacture is going to run out of gas, and nothing has happened. And you think, well, how is it that two shock jocks on radio, 4 farmers and half a dozen environmentalists can bamboozle premiers so that all of this gas Bruce talks about, which is under the ground, stays there?
Well, yep.
I reckon it's about time some premiers had a backbone and got that gas out of the ground,
it's really
and we'd all be better
and look,
off.
it's a good point, but it's really interesting why they're not facing the same sort of political heat over this as certainly the federal government is, when it's the state gas bans that are the problem.
That are in place, yeah. Well, I think that's exactly right. But then there is an expectation that when state governments are intransigent and you have a national interest to protect, that the Commonwealth should step in and do what we elect Commonwealth governments to do, represent the national interests and not just the interests of the, of vested interests in New South Wales or Queensland or wherever it is that they're stopping the production of gas.
Look, we've run out of time. I was going to get your thoughts. We might do it next week on the New Zealand election because, I'm sure by next week it'll still be waiting for a result.
And and there's some good lessons there for Australia.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to explore it. We might do it next week because we're right out of time. And as we say, we still won't have a result by then anyway. Grahame Morris, Bruce Hawker, good to talk to both of you. Thanks very much for that. We're going to take a quick break.